I used to believe that if you gave your family everything, they would guard it like treasure. That was how I was raised. Blood protects blood. Loyalty is permanent. Sacrifice is love. I built my entire adult life on those three ideas, and I never questioned them, not when my parents asked to move into my house, not when my younger sister Vanessa Hart followed after her latest breakup, and definitely not when they slowly began rearranging my life like it belonged to them. I am the oldest, responsible, stable, predictable. I became a doctor because I liked fixing things. Broken bones, failing lungs, fading heartbeats. What I never learned how to fix was the quiet damage that happens inside a home. When my daughter Lila Hart was born, I promised her she would always feel safe. She was 9 when everything started to shift. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough that I began noticing small things that didn't sit right. Lila has always been sensitive. The thoughtful kind of child who notices when someone's tone changes by half a degree. She apologizes when other people bump into her. She cries at animated movies but laughs harder than anyone when something feels safe. She is not weak. She is observant. My family called her dramatic. The first time I heard Vanessa say it, I laughed it off. She just feels deeply, I said. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Or, she just wants attention. That comment stuck with me longer than it should have. My parents weren't cruel outright. They were subtle. They would sigh when Lila covered her ears during loud arguments. My father once joked that she needed thicker skin. My mother told her she would have to toughen up if she wanted to survive in this world. I told myself they meant well. I told myself family corrects you because they care. I trusted that the people living under my roof would protect my child emotionally the same way I protected them financially. That was my first mistake. Because financially, I did give them everything. Mortgage in my name. Utilities in my name. Groceries paid by me. My sister's credit card debt quietly handled by me. My parents' temporary stay extended into year 3. It never felt like exploitation at first. It felt like duty. I was the successful one. The stable one. The one who could handle it. Vanessa started managing household finances. To help. She said I worked too much and shouldn't stress over bills. It sounded reasonable. Generous even. I handed over access. Passwords. Accounts. Trust. Weeks turned into months. Statements became confusing. Whenever I asked about transfers, Vanessa became defensive. Not guilty defensive. She would accuse me of micromanaging, of not appreciating how much she handled. One night at dinner, she snapped at Lila for spilling juice. It wasn't the words that hurt. It was the volume. Lila flinched so hard she knocked over her chair. That sound, the chair hitting tile, still echoes in my mind. She apologized instantly. For spilling. For breathing. For existing too loudly. That was the moment empathy hit me like a punch. My daughter was shrinking in her own house. I pulled her into my lap even though she was getting big for that. Her hands were cold. She whispered, "I'll try to be better. Better." 9 years old and already believing she was the problem. The sadness that followed was physical. It sat in my throat like something I couldn't swallow. Later that night, I checked the bank account for the first time in weeks. The numbers didn't make sense. Large withdrawals. Repeated transfers. Amounts that were not small mistakes. Surprise doesn't even describe it. It was disbelief layered over denial. I refreshed the screen 3 times like the math would change out of guilt. It didn't. When I confronted Vanessa the next morning, she didn't panic. She got angry. That anger shocked me more than the missing money. She accused me of spying, of not trusting her, of acting superior because I made more. My mother stepped in immediately, not to question the missing funds, but to question my tone. My father told me not to cause drama before the holidays. I stood there in my own kitchen feeling like an intruder. Lila was at the hallway corner, watching. She wasn't crying. She wasn't speaking. She was just smaller. That was when I realized something I had refused to see for years. I hadn't just trusted my family. I had built my entire world around protecting them. And in doing so, I had left my daughter unprotected. The betrayal wasn't only financial, it was emotional. It was generational. It was watching my child slowly learn that love requires silence. That night, Lila crawled into my bed. She didn't say much. She just asked one question in the dark. Dad, am I hard to love? There are moments in emergency medicine where you know instantly that if you hesitate, someone dies. That question felt like that, because if I answered wrong even slightly, something inside her would break permanently. I held her face in my hands and told her the truth. You are the easiest thing in my life to love. But inside, something else was unraveling. Because for the first time, I understood the cost of blind loyalty. I had trusted my family with everything, and that trust was already destroying the only thing that truly mattered. The morning after Lila asked me if she was hard to love, I didn't go back to sleep. Some questions don't leave room for rest. They sit in your chest and press, quiet but constant, until you either face what's wrong or keep pretending everything is fine. For years, I had chosen the second option. It was easier, cleaner, less disruptive. But something about the way my daughter's voice cracked in the dark had burned through whatever denial I had left. I was standing in the kitchen before sunrise, coffee untouched, laptop open, bank statements pulled up across the screen. The house was quiet in that artificial way homes get when tension has been living in the walls too long. For the first time, I wasn't skimming the numbers. I was studying them. And the more I looked, the worse it got. Transfers I didn't approve. Withdrawals that didn't match household expenses. Payments routed through accounts that were technically family shared, but had never been explained clearly. The pattern wasn't chaotic. It was careful. That realization landed cold in my stomach. Because mistakes are messy. This wasn't messy. This was methodical. The disbelief came first, thick and stubborn. I kept telling myself there had to be context I was missing. Vanessa could be sharp, yes. Defensive, absolutely. But calculated? Intentional? That was harder to accept. Until I scrolled back 6 months, then 9, then a full year. The pattern didn't start recently. It had been building quietly while I worked double shifts, while I covered their bills, while I trusted the people living under my roof. My grip tightened around the coffee mug. That was when the anger finally started to rise. Not explosive. Not loud. The dangerous kind that builds slowly when you realize you've been played for longer than you thought. I didn't confront Vanessa immediately. I wanted to see how she acted when she thought everything was normal. So I waited. Breakfast that morning was painfully ordinary. My father reading the news like nothing in the world was wrong. My mother scrolling recipes on her tablet. Vanessa walking in late, yawning like she hadn't been managing thousands of dollars behind my back. And Lila was quiet. Too quiet. She sat at the edge of her chair, shoulders slightly tucked inward, like she was trying to take up less space at the table. That sight hit harder than any bank statement ever could. Because whatever financial mess I was uncovering, the emotional damage was already happening in real time. Vanessa noticed me watching her. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What? She asked, already defensive. That reaction told me everything. People who have nothing to hide don't start conversations with attitude. I was reviewing the accounts, I said evenly. The shift in her posture was small, but I saw it. A flicker. Gone in half a second. You seriously need to relax, she said, grabbing coffee. You're always stressed about money. Always. Like this was my personality flaw. Like I was the unreasonable one. The sadness mixed with the anger in a way that made my chest feel tight. Because this wasn't just deflection, it was rewriting the narrative. I asked her directly about 3 large transfers from the previous quarter. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sighed. Laung. Dramatic. Weaponized. You work too much to understand how household flow works, she said. Household flow. I almost laughed. Almost. But then Lila dropped her spoon. The small clatter made everyone look over. She froze instantly, eyes wide, like she had just triggered something dangerous. My mother sighed. Vanessa rolled her eyes, and something inside me snapped into sharp, painful focus. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about environment. About patterns. About the quiet way my daughter had learned to monitor adult reactions before even breathing too loudly. I reached over and gently slid her spoon back toward her. "It's okay," I said softly. She nodded. But she didn't relax. That told me everything I needed to know. Vanessa stood abruptly. "If you're going to keep interrogating me, I have things to do," she said. Interrogating. The word echoed in my head long after she left the kitchen. Because innocent people explain. They don't retreat. They don't escalate. They don't make you feel like the villain for asking where your own money went. I spent the rest of the morning pulling every statement I could access. Cross-checking, timestamping, documenting. Dr. Habits die hard. By mid-afternoon, the picture was no longer blurry. It was clear. Painfully clear. Money had been moved. Repeatedly. Quietly. And not for household expenses. When Vanessa came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room. Laptop open. Statements lined up. Receipts highlighted. For the first time since this started, she didn't look irritated when she saw me. She looked alert. "Careful. You're being dramatic again?" she said, but her voice was tighter now. I turned the screen toward her and watched the color drain slowly from her face. Not panic. Not yet. But something close. The anger inside me finally settled into something solid and cold. Because in that moment, I understood something that changed everything. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't miscommunication. This wasn't even family chaos. This was betrayal wearing the mask of convenience. Behind us, in the hallway, I saw Lila again. Watching. Quiet. Waiting. And for the first time since all of this started, one thought cut through every other emotion in my chest. Whatever happened next, I was done pretending I didn't see it. Vanessa stared at the laptop for a long time without speaking. Not shocked, not confused, just calculating. That was the first moment the last piece of denial inside me finally died. Because people who are innocent react fast. They explain. They get defensive in a messy, emotional way. Vanessa was too controlled, too measured, too careful with her face. The room felt smaller with every second that passed. Behind me, I could hear the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint shuffle of Lila's feet in the hallway. She hadn't gone back to her room. She was still watching, still waiting. And that realization hit me with a fresh wave of urgency. This was no longer just about what my sister had done. It was about what my daughter was learning by watching it. Vanessa finally exhaled slowly and leaned back against the arm of the couch, like she was settling into a conversation about the weather. "You're overreacting," she said. The calm in her voice lit something sharp in my chest. Anger finally rose fully to the surface. Not loud, not explosive, cold, precise. The kind that comes when you realize someone is still trying to manage you even after they've been caught. "I asked you a simple question," I said evenly. "Where did the money go?" Her eyes flicked toward the hallway for half a second. She knew Lila was there. She just didn't care enough to lower her tone. "It was temporary," Vanessa said. "I moved things around to handle some pressure." Pressure. Such a clean word for such a messy reality. "Whose pressure?" I asked. That was when her jaw tightened. And the silence that followed told me more than any confession ever could. The disbelief hit again. But this time it wasn't soft. It was sharp and final. Because deep down, I already knew the answer before she said it. "My credit situation got tight," Vanessa admitted finally, like she was annoyed I had forced the conversation this far. "I was going to fix it before you even noticed." Before I noticed, the room tilted slightly. Not because of the money, because of the certainty in her voice. She hadn't thought this was wrong. She had thought it was acceptable. Normal. Expected. The sadness came next, heavy and exhausting. Because I suddenly saw the last 3 years with painful clarity. The extra groceries. The temporary help. The way every financial conversation somehow circled back to me being the stable one who could handle it. I hadn't just been helping. I had been quietly assigned the role of safety net. Without consent. Without limits. Without respect. Behind me, something small moved. Lila. I turned slightly and saw her standing halfway in the hallway, fingers twisted tightly in the hem of her shirt. Her eyes weren't wide with shock. They were familiar. Like this scene made sense to her. That realization hurt more than anything Vanessa had said. Because my daughter was not surprised by tension in this house. She was used to it. Vanessa noticed my attention shift and followed my gaze. Her expression flickered with brief annoyance. "Can she not hover right now?" she muttered. That was it. That was the exact moment the breaking point arrived. Something inside my chest snapped into place with terrifying clarity. "Lila," I said gently, keeping my voice steady. "Go grab your headphones for a minute, okay?" She hesitated, then nodded quickly and disappeared down the hall. Only when her bedroom door clicked shut did I look back at Vanessa. And this time, I didn't soften my voice. "You moved my daughter's college fund to cover your credit cards," I said. It wasn't a question. Vanessa lifted her chin slightly, defensive now. "It was temporary, I told you. Temporary." Like trust was a revolving door she could walk through whenever she needed. The disbelief was gone now, burned away. What replaced it was something colder. Clarity. "You didn't ask," I said quietly. "You would have said no." She shot back immediately. The honesty in that answer sucked the air straight out of the room, because she wasn't denying it. She was justifying it. For a moment, real grief hit me, not just about the money, but about the relationship I thought we had. About every time I defended her. Every time I told myself family meant safety. I had been protecting someone who never felt obligated to protect me back. Or my child. Behind the wall, I heard the faint sound of Lila's headphones clicking on. Music leaking softly through the door. My chest tightened. Because whatever happened next, she was still in this house. Still absorbing everything. Still learning what love was supposed to look like. And suddenly I knew, with absolute certainty, that if I didn't draw a line right now, I wasn't just failing myself. I was failing her. I closed the laptop slowly. Vanessa watched me carefully now. For the first time since this started, she looked slightly uncertain. Good, because I was done being predictable. "Start documenting every transfer you made," I said calmly. "Every account. Every dollar." Her eyes narrowed. "You're being dramatic again." Maybe. But something inside me had finally shifted permanently. Because this wasn't just the moment I caught my sister. This was the moment I stopped protecting her comfort over my daughter's safety. And deep down, I knew nothing in this house was going to stay the same after tonight. The house felt different the morning after everything broke open. Not louder. Not more chaotic. Quieter, but the heavy kind of quiet that settles in after something important shifts. Vanessa stayed mostly in her room. My parents moved around carefully, like they were waiting for me to cool down and return to normal. That was the pattern in our family. Tension rose, I smoothed it over, and life continued. Except this time I didn't smooth anything. I was done being the reset button. Lila noticed the difference immediately. Children always do. She stayed close to me that morning while I made breakfast, her small shoulder brushing mine every few minutes like she was checking that I was still there. I kept my voice calm, my movements steady, because whatever storm was coming next, she deserved at least one adult who felt solid. The empathy I felt for her had sharpened into something protective. Fierce. Focused. By midday, I had already spoken to two people. A colleague who knew housing law better than most doctors ever should, and a lawyer friend who owed me a favor from a very unfortunate kitchen accident 2 years ago. The answers were simple. Painfully simple. The house was in my name. The accounts were in my name. And permission to stay could be revoked. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that call ended, staring at the blank document on my laptop. Part of me still couldn't believe I was here, not financially, but emotionally. You don't grow up imagining you'll one day serve formal notice to your own family. But then I remembered Lila flinching at dinner. I remembered her whispering, "I'll try to be better." And the hesitation disappeared. The anger was no longer hot. It had cooled into something far more useful. Clarity. I typed slowly. Precisely. The same way I write medical notes, when the details matter. Effective immediately. Your permission to reside in this property is revoked. You have 7 days to remove your belongings. All financial access previously granted is terminated. Do not discuss this with Lila. Communications go through me. I read it twice, then once more. The sadness crept in quietly while the printer hummed. Because even when people hurt you, there is still a small, stubborn part of your chest that mourns what you thought the relationship was. I didn't want it to end like this. But I wanted my daughter to feel safe more. That mattered more. By evening, Lila and I were packed. Not dramatically. Not permanently. Just enough. Her favorite hoodie. The stuffed fox she'd slept with since she was 4. Her sketchbook. A small overnight bag for me. We weren't running. We were creating space. When I told her we were going on a short, quiet break, she didn't ask many questions. She just nodded and slipped her hand into mine. That trust, small, warm, absolute, nearly broke me all over again. We left just before sunset. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a speech. I just placed the envelope in the center of the kitchen table, exactly where they would see it. 4 days passed quietly in the furnished apartment across town. Lila slept better than she had in months. She laughed more. She stopped hovering in doorways. Every small change felt like confirmation I had waited too long to act. Then, on the 4th afternoon, my phone started vibrating across the counter. Once. Twice. Then repeatedly. I looked at the screen. Mom. Dad. Vanessa. All calling within seconds of each other. Right on schedule. I let it ring twice more before answering. My mother's voice came through first tight, breathless, already panicking. "What is this notice on the table?" she demanded. There it was. The moment. I kept my voice calm. "It's exactly what it says." Silence slammed into the line. Then my father's voice joined, sharper. "You cannot be serious." "I am," I said evenly. In the background, I could hear Vanessa pacing, muttering, her voice rising in that familiar defensive pitch. Even through the phone, I could picture her face. Still shocked I had drawn a line. For a brief second, the old sadness tried to creep back in. The old instinct to soften, to explain, to make this easier for them. Then I remembered Lila's small voice in the dark. "Am I hard to love?" The hesitation vanished. "You left my daughter in a house alone," I said quietly. "You moved her college fund without permission, and you expected me to keep pretending everything was fine." No one spoke for a full 3 seconds. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. When I finally spoke again, my voice was steady in a way I had never heard it before. "I trusted you with everything," I said, "and that trust is exactly what forced me to fix this." Vanessa finally snapped in the background. "You're blowing this out of proportion." Maybe. But something inside me was finally unshakable. Because this wasn't the moment my family fell apart. This was the moment I stopped letting my daughter shrink to keep everyone else comfortable. And judging by the panic echoing through the phone, they were only just beginning to understand what they had broken.